Hi, this is episode 15 of Camellia City, a podcast about the craziest, most magical, beautiful little town in Alabama, Greenville, Alabama. And today I was thinking about taxes. Woo, interesting, right? But what's happening is we have a vote coming up on a increase in property tax to go towards the school system. And while there's really great arguments on both sides of the issue, there's so many people against being taxed. Just in general, people are just so tired of being taxed, and the prospect of this new tax really, I don't think, has really been sold to the people. The people can't see where the advantage is, and there's a lot against having any new taxes. People have historically been burned by that, and I don't know what's going to happen. I'll report on that in January when the vote happens, but I just don't think it's being sold. People haven't been convinced of why they should vote yes on this tax exactly and how it benefits them. I know that, people are just very weary of taxes not going to what they originally said they were going to, or just kind of tired of being taxed in general in the whole country. So it's a hard sell, but we'll see what happens. So I was thinking about this because we have a history of a certain kind of violence in this town. We're a really old town. Like I've said, we're a day older than the whole state of Alabama. And so there's been a lot of outlaw murders and that sort of thing happening. And the story I'm going to tell you about is from 1892. Quite a dangerous time here. And this, like I said, happened 126 years ago today. Our tax man was murdered. J.C. Armstrong. Okay, so here from the Vernon Courier, Montgomery, December 17th. Information reached here this afternoon from Greenville that the dead body of tax collector Armstrong of Butler County had been found in the swamp on Panther Creek, 15 miles from that place. So if you guys, I don't know where Panther Creek is, but I would love to hear from you guys on where that is if you want to comment, in the comment section. The tax collector was on his rounds and was, it is believed, murdered for the purpose of robbery. There is no clue to the murderer. The deceased had been tax assessor of the county for years and was recently appointed tax collector by Governor Jones, the tax collector elected in August having failed to qualify. The governor will offer a reward for the apprehension of the murderers. Okay, so here's another newspaper post. J.C. Armstrong, tax collector of Butler County, was brutally assassinated last Saturday. It is supposed robbery was a cause, as about $2,000 was taken. Oh, but we're not sure how much was taken, because here from the Hamilton Times of Marion County, Alabama, Greenville, December 17th. E.J. Armstrong, tax collector of this county, was robbed and murdered at Panther Creek this morning. His body was riddled with bullets. No particulars can be learned. The town is ablaze with excitement, and a posse of 30 determined men armed to the teeth have set out. The dogs at the bowling mills have been put on the trail. Armstrong was out in the performance of his duty and had probably $500 to $700 collected. He was a general favorite and was held in high regard by all. Okay. And I'm going to put the links of this up underneath on the YouTube channel, so that you can read this. So if you go to their YouTube, it'll have the links up. Okay, so this is from rhodesmill.org, and I will put this link up as well. And he speaks about, this is his recollection of stories he's heard from Butler County, and he actually recounts this May 21st of 1988. This past week, I came onto a book, Butler County in the 19th Century, by Marilyn Davis Hahn of Birmingham. She devoted some 4 pages to the account of John Hipp and Charlie Kelly. Her source included newspaper accounts at the time and a photo of the two hung to the columns on the courthouse. Her details differ from mine in places, and she had some additional information. She dates the events, 1891 or 1892. My father, born in 1890, would not have remembered the events. He must have remembered hearing talk of the events when he was a child. They first came to public attention connected with the illegal sale of whiskey. Then a Negro woman was murdered at the site of the present Methodist Church in Georgiana. The motive of this crime was not disclosed. Then a Georgiana merchant, Mr. Torrent, was murdered in his store, and his store was robbed early in the morning on September the 9th, 1891. The odd couple were Eliza L. and Thomas Shepard. They had recently sold a crop or herd or something, and were thought to have the money at home. No mention of gold. They were murdered with an axe in the early part of the evening, November the 4th, a very bloody affair, and their house ransacked. A colored couple named Moore were suspected when bloody clothes were found in their woodpile. They were released when blood analysis at Auburn confirmed their claim that the blood was from a steer they had butchered. Now, and he says in quotes, and I can't imagine this either, what blood analysis would have been carried out in that day? Then one Tom Rhodes, a relative, I had not heard of him before, was suspected. He had disappeared after contracting to lease part of the Shepherd land. No evidence was stated that linked Hip and Kelly to this murder, but there may have been some. So stay with me, because Hip and Kelly are coming up. The last murder was that of the tax collector, Charles Jacob Armstrong. He was riding circuit collecting taxes. He had spent the night with Sellers of Sellers' store after collecting taxes for that part of the county, then started out for Rocky Creek. He was shot from ambush as he passed Panther Creek. He may have shot and wounded Hip. Panther Creek, here's some more about Panther Creek. Panther Creek rises a mile west of Georgiana and flows southward into Persimmon Creek. There is a Sellers community some 2 miles south of Georgiana. Mons Thornton's daughter-in-law was a Sellers, or else her grandfather was one. Grandfather was once ministry at Wesley Chapel, she told me. Okay, here's another part of his recollection. As was often the case in those days, the courthouse incumbent, Armstrong, was a one-legged Confederate veteran. Also it's getting more interesting. He also had a wife and 6 children, so the populace was justifiably incensed. Only $12 had appeared to have been taken. Several $100s in an inner pocket was overlooked, and much of the collection was in checks. Now that was not earlier reported. The sheriff was J.T. Burganier, and I don't know if that's a misspelling of Barganier, since that's a famous name in this town. A Captain Porterfield was a member of the 30-man posse. Captain of what? The Confederate Army? Others were Oliver Bryant, Clink Williams, Tom Owens, and Dave Kern. Hip was captured when he attempted to board a Dunham Lumber Company train. He was wounded when he refused to surrender and fired on the posse. He may have already been wounded by Armstrong. Dunham was south of Georgiana on the L&N to Mobile, while Chapman is a comparable distance north. I guess it was a location of Dunham Lumber Company. It could have taken its name from the firm. My grandmother's father, Thomas Elmo, Atkinson, may have lived at Dunham about this time. Okay, so Kelly was arrested Christmas Eve 5 miles south of Pineapple in Monroe County. He was hiding in a cotton house owned by H.L. Solomon. Solomon and some neighbors captured him, and he was taken to jail in Greenville Christmas Day. Okay, so let's put it all together. So they're there at the jail in Greenville. It was the night of January 29th, a month later, that 100 men got a deputy sheriff, also named Burganier, up the middle of the night and forced him to let them into the jail. The next morning, the bad men were found hanging from the columns of the courthouse. Can you imagine? So a lynch mob were tired of waiting around and got into the jail and took those guys out and lynched them at the courthouse. A coroner's jury found death by unlawful hanging, and that's in quotes, and that the two had been strung up and strangled. Their necks were not broken. There was some speculation that Hip may have already been dead from his wounds. None of the 100 was recognized or found out. So we have here vigilante justice in Butler County in 1893 now, because it would be January, the end of January, where 100 men broke into the jail, grabbed those two guys out and strung them. Look, come on, this is a whole community complicit in this, and nobody told on the 100 men who strung up these guys. So that there is a little bit more on Mrs. Hahn's book, which I would love to get. Among such talked about was other murders and things that happened in the county, and I'll put that link up so you can get that book. All right, so the other thing I wanted to add to this about the murder and then the subsequent murders without justice is a book, and this I get from the Greenville Standard from 2016, written by our wonderful Molly Waters, and it's about the book Murder in Butler County, written by John Hip, a descendant of one of those strung up. One might think that people are engaging in more unlawful activities now than ever before, but that is not the case in Butler County, and you can talk to Molly about this. She loves to talk about the crime of Butler County in the late 1800s. There was lots of murder going on. Some of the worst happened between 1891 and 1892. Known as the Hip and Kelly murders, two men, John Hip and Charles Kelly, were accused of committing several murders over the course of more than a year in the southern part of the county. Now, were they members of the James Gang? That's a rumor I'm not ready to confirm yet. But they were eventually caught and lynched for their supposed crimes. The story of Hip and the Kelly murders has now become the backdrop for a fictional novel titled Murder in Butler County by John Hip, a descendant of one of the accused men. The book was released in April of 2016. And by the way, you can still get this on Amazon, so I'll leave this link up too. And John Hip lives in Georgia, but he took many years to research this, and I think it's really interesting. I can't wait to read it myself. So there it is, one of our famous murders of the many famous murders that we have in this town. I'll probably, one of my favorites that I like to talk, there's so many axe murderers that you can get them confused, but I really would love to know more about the 1940 axe murder of Butterbean McQueen, perpetrated by the two Purdue sisters up on Baptist Hill, but, one day I'll do more of that. So there you go. 126 years ago today. Wow. The murder of J.C. Armstrong leading up to a very unlawful lynching at our very own courthouse, 1892. All right. So thank you for listening to Camellia City. I'll have some other stories coming up for you soon. Say hello to me sometime, and I love you much. Okay, bye. Mwah.